Is your home feeling a little blah, but you don't have the time or money for a complete makeover? Well, there are several easy ways that you can boost your home's aesthetic without spending a lot of money. So today I want to share 13 budget-friendly DIYs that you can tackle in a few hours or even minutes. So if you're ready to take your home from blah to beautiful, let's get started.
These cabinet doors in the guest bathroom are clearly original to our 1962 house, and whoever last painted them must not have used a primer. I have an idea that will hopefully improve the appearance of these outdated doors. First, I removed the handles and then I measured the height and width of the door face. I had some leftover wallpaper from my foyer makeover. It's a thick, paintable wallpaper. I cut out 2 rectangles to fit the front of each door. Since this paper is pre-pasted, I ran some water over the back side, making sure I didn't miss any spots. Then I folded it over on itself. This is called booking. It allows the wallpaper to absorb the paste evenly and thereby preventing it from shrinking after it's hung. I apparently forgot to turn on the camera while I applied the wallpaper, but you've all seen me hang wallpaper several times lately. Next, I measured the height of each door again because I had already forgotten. Then I cut 2 small strips of thin wood to that length. I attached them along the door edges using small brad nails in my staple gun because the smallest nail size for my nail gun would have been too long since both the wood strips and the doors are thin. Next, I measured the width between the wood slats. Be sure to measure along both the top and bottom of the door because my measurements weren't exactly the same. You want it to fit snugly so that you don't have to use a whole bunch of caulk to try to hide the crack. Once all the slats were attached, I applied a bead of caulk on all the inside edges and in the seams where the slats butted up to each other. I let the caulk dry for a couple hours and then I applied a primer to the wood areas. Once the primer was dry, I used a small trim brush and a small roller to paint the doors and the wood face around the doors. I didn't paint the trim because when you start painting trim, where do you stop? And I just wasn't prepared to paint all the bathroom trim. I have plans to wallpaper this room, so I'll make a decision about the trim after I choose the wallpaper. In retrospect, I should have removed the doors because it was not easy painting them in place. The paint that I'm using is the dark navy that was left over from painting the foyer. So I'll likely choose a wallpaper that coordinates with the foyer too. New cabinet knobs are a simple and inexpensive way to upgrade the style and overall look of your cabinets. When I saw these blue bird and gold knobs at Hobby Lobby, you know I had to have them. I just re-drilled through one of the old holes to attach them. When you look into my laundry room, you see a modern window covered with an old chippy window frame. To make it a more attractive focal point, I wanted to add a shelf across the top of the window. Shelves can elevate a room's decor both functionally and aesthetically by adding visual lines, texture, and color. I found an old board in my garage that was a good width. I just needed to cut a few inches off the length. Since I'm not going to be putting any heavy items on it, I just ran a few brad nails through the board and into the old window frame to secure it in place. Then I added 2 thrift store shelf brackets at either end and nailed them to the underside of the board. Technically, the brackets aren't actually holding up the shelf. I just like the way they look. There was a hole in the top center of the old window frame. I had a small laundry sign that I bought a couple years ago and never used, and it was the perfect size to conceal that hole. Sometimes we replace an entire light fixture when we could have just updated it with a new shade. Several years ago, I bought this fixture at the Habitat Restore, painted it black, and removed the dated glass shades. Now I'm tired of this industrial look, so I went back to Habitat to find some new shades. I found a vintage shade that I loved, but there was only one. But then I thought, why do they have to match? I hunted through all the shades and found 2 other vintage shades that I loved. So, what do you think? Would you consider using mismatched shades in your home? Painting a door is a simple and budget-friendly way to complement your decor and breathe new life into a room. This door in my mudroom slash entryway space was screaming for some fresh paint. In fact, it still had the basic white primer that comes on steel doors when you buy them. So I decided to paint it black. Black is a timeless color that complements almost every other color, and it's great for an exterior door because it hides minor imperfections, fingerprints, and dust. I love how this turned out, and now I'm considering painting some of my interior doors black too. We all know that painting your walls is one of the simplest and most impactful ways to improve the look and feel of a room. Little by little, I am painting over all of the gray walls in my home with colors that make me feel cozy and happy, and green is one of those colors. But when painting my mudroom walls, the first green I picked was, well, too green. It looks better on camera, but trust me, it was too green. So I went back to the paint store and got a medium sage color called High Park. I thought this coordinated much better with my toile wallpaper. Did you know that our eyes are most sensitive to green wavelengths of light, making it the easiest color for us to see? If you saw last week's video, then you know that I already updated the lighting fixture in the mudroom with green paint and bird cabinet knobs. Well, this week I'm going to take this unexpected element a step further by stenciling some gold birds to the ceiling. I taped the stencils to the ceiling and then used a sponge dauber to pounce on the gold acrylic paint. I let the paint dry and then dabbed on a second coat. When I peeled off the stencil, some of the paint had bled underneath the stencil, so I used a small paintbrush and more of the gold paint to smooth out the edges. I also used a little white acrylic paint to clean up a few spots. If I'm going to go to the trouble to stencil on the ceiling, I want to make sure people notice those birds. So I decided to add one on the wall above the door. This time I stuck the stencil to the wall with pixie spray, which is a light, temporary adhesive, and it worked great. There was almost no bleed through, and the spray did not leave any residue behind on the wall. I'm curious, have you ever stenciled on the ceiling before? Because this was a first for me. Several of you suggested that I use antiquing wax or white wax to help unite the gold and green paint colors on my bird lantern, which was a great idea. I debated using white wax, which would stand out more on the birds, but I went with antiquing wax, which I felt coordinated better with my vintage and thrifted decor. I do like it better with the muted colors, but let me know what you think. Did you like it better without the antiquing wax? I had previously updated my kitchen switch plates with gold spray paint, but I didn't do the ones in the mudroom, and they were still silver. And you know I'm a gold and brass girl. A little tip, when you're spraying the plates, be sure to paint the screws too. When I originally created this mudroom out of a closet, farmhouse and industrial decor was really popular, and these metal bins were perfect for storing shoes. But they just don't go with my decor anymore. So I'm going to replace them with a few thrift store wicker baskets and some inexpensive ones I picked up at Home Goods. If you have kids at home, you might want to add hanging tags so everyone can help you keep the contents organized. LOL. I used the metal bins inside the bench to keep things organized in there too. I loved these gray and white gingham pillow covers when I bought them, and I still really like them. But I'm going to switch them out with some old sage-colored pillow covers that I've had for a while. I just think these will look better with the new color scheme in the mudroom. And I think Edgar agrees. I also decided to cover the bench cushion, which, you guessed it, was gray. It was also stained. I had tried to find some fabric that I had on hand that I could use, like an old bedspread or tablecloth, but I didn't like anything that I had, and I really wanted a pale green that would coordinate with the wallpaper and the freshly painted walls. So I ended up buying some new fabric on sale at Hobby Lobby. I laid the cushion on the fabric, folded the fabric over the cushion, and cut the 3 edges, leaving just an extra ½ inch to allow for the seams. With the pretty side of the fabric on the inside, I stitched the long side and one end on my sewing machine. Then I turned it right side out and inserted the cushion. I folded the extra fabric in on the open end, pinned it in place, and then just sewed it closed on my sewing machine. That end will be against a wall, so no one will see that seam anyway. It's hard to tell with the lighting in this room, but trust me, the pale green fabric looks great against the tall wallpaper. The current rug in the mudroom was purchased when I first opened up the closet and was decorating with gray and red, which definitely doesn't go with the green paint or the toile wallpaper. So I found an inexpensive washable rug on Amazon. I love that I can throw this in the washing machine. I'll let you know how it holds up. It's supposed to be gray and green, but there sure isn't much green in it. Adding the final touches to a room, for me, means mixing in some of my thrift store finds. You might remember these little drawers from a previous video. I rearranged and put something else in their spot, so I thought I would attach them to the wall to hold small items like keys and sunglasses. I used just one brad nail in each drawer so that I can easily pull them off the wall when I want to change things up again. My favorite thrift store has been raising their prices. This vintage mirror cost $16, but it is pretty cute. My Goodwill is getting pricey too. This bird cost $5.60. A year ago, I could have bought that for half that price. This 59-cent frame was the only good deal that I found, and I just added a small sheep print. The vintage coat rack was previously in the mudroom. It's a great spot for the dog leash and extra poop bags, and I think it's gorgeous, so it's going right back where it was. I put the same vintage landscape print above it. I often get criticized for not using more real plants, and I'd love to add real plants, but this space gets so little natural light. I just bundled a few faux stems together with florist wire and added them in a couple of spots. I'd love to know if you're going to try any of these projects in your home. And if you want even more mini makeover ideas, here's another video I think you'll like.